The following is intended only for mature audiences.
Open your ears and lube up your butthole. It's time for the What Do We Call It podcast. Now, here's your host. It's J-Man. Welcome to the What Do We Call It podcast. I'm J-Man.
This is Steiny.
When we last left off, I was beginning to delve into a now former coworker of mine who was absolutely batshit crazy and a pain to deal with. And here's the next part of the story. Fair warning. It's kind of scatterbrained, but also fun.
Right.
Now I have to go to the... This is a full page, a front page of loose leaf paper here now. I pulled out of a notebook of just shit that I finally get to get off my chest.
Okay.
Obviously, we've all vented and had choir practice at work, but I have not been able to talk about him with everybody like I wanted to.
All right.
When I said he smelled, you know that scent that somebody has if they don't shower... and then they go to the gym, and then after the gym, all the time. There's like, it's sort of like BO and sort of like ass.
Yeah, yeah.
And sometimes...
And you somehow amplified it by sweating more or working out?
Oh, yeah. By being on the job, yeah. There's some days where he'd be in the break room, and he'd leave the break room, and you'd still smell him. Like, it was the worst this past summer with how hot it was. I went into the bathroom, and he had just come out, and I apparently had gotten into the same stall he was in without knowing it. And I went to sit down. I'm like, oh my God. Like, I fucking gagged from the scent of BO and ball sack. Like, straight up doo-doo duck butter. And I went to the handy stall next door. Because I'm like, I'm not fucking using it. Yeah. Fuck this shit. He smelled so bad. But because he was like fucking uncleanly, he'd be itchy. And you'd catch him like, he'd lift up an arm and just be digging in his armpit, scratching it. And it'd go on for like 10 to 15 seconds.
Wouldn't he get a rash from being so unclean and scratching like that? That's got to be doing something to your skin.
Fucking, I don't know, but he didn't like wash his hands. He's like digging in his pits, and then he's like fucking touching everything. He's gross. But he would do it so much that one of my coworkers, he's like, remember that Mudvayne song, Dig? That's him just dig! Just fucking digging in his pits. And then he'd go and he'd get on his fucking order picker, and he'd touch everything. Are you really going over the lyrics and mouthing them?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, our order,
that was like their first big hit.
It was when they first hit big. There's a cage, not a windshield, on his order picker. When he'd wait for people, he'd just like hang his fingers on there like a kid at the border looking through the fence. And then he'd like, a few times, he fucking was like mouthing on that thing, chewing on it.
What?
And you'd go,
Some
is
weird
this fucking guy
fixation?
retarded? I don't know. Like, is he stimming? Is it stimulating his own
Yeah, that's
self?
what I mean. Yeah, no, that's exactly what I was thinking. Bored, so he's there.
Because he told me some stuff about his mental health. He told me that the reason he and his wife were separated is because he got tired of fighting. So he left. Now, mind you, he left his wife, who he swore he loved dearly, and his son when he was a toddler. Dick move.
Yeah.
Dick move.
You can leave, but don't leave your kids. Still stay involved in his life, but all right.
But telling me about the arguing, then told me that he hears voices. And that he fucking takes meds for that shit.
Yeah.
Now, later on, I made some crack about
The Beast?
saying that she had borderline personality disorder to me.
Sure.
And he's like, hey, I have that. Don't make fun of that. I'm like, don't make my thing about your thing. Like he does with everything. But I'm just sitting there like, you have BPD. That makes sense why you are an annoying asshole. And then when people call you out on it, you play the victim. But that doesn't explain hearing voices. When you have full-blown auditory hallucinations, that is paranoid schizophrenia.
Yep.
That is not BPD. So you have more than fucking BPD. And then people like that, knowing he was in the military and he's talking about he has a gun.
Yeah.
So when I say that we were monitoring his Facebook page, I'm going to refrain from admitting that it was only me monitoring his Facebook page because I wanted to know his history. When he starts saying this shit, I went full-on detective. I'm like checking the state courts database. He's got a record. He referenced that all people that go to jail aren't bad people. That's how I knew to check the court database.
Oh, okay.
Gave himself away. The no front teeth, probably from meth. I'm thinking. But also, like, the marriage records, and I found out that he had another kid, because he mentioned having an older kid. Well, I found out that he hadn't even seen that kid since it was like born.
Oh, so the same
I don't know what
routine.
the hell happened, but there was a protection order and he was not allowed near that kid.
Okay.
And he was just like paying his child support. He's like, well, you got to take care of your kids. And when I knew that he had another son that he didn't see and that he was taking care of him by sending a check, I'm like, you're not taking care of your kid.
Yeah.
You're paying a tab. You're a fucking sperm donor.
Right. You
How
just
dare
get less
you?
money at the end of the month. Yeah.
Fucking call yourself that kid's dad. You're not his dad. You're just a fucking ghost in his life. And when the kid turned 18, he's like, well, he's got my number. I know his mom gave it to him because I asked her to. And if he wants to talk to me, he'll call me. It's like, how can you reconcile in your mind having such a cavalier attitude about raising a child and not being there in his life after you made him? Like, you're not going to keep my kids away from me.
But dude, get that. You and I are completely wired differently than this guy, because this guy, he didn't care at the time to be part of his kid's life. He wasn't going to be a dad before he was 18, and he's not going to be a dad after this kid's 18 either. You know what I mean? The minute I found out I was going to be a father, you would have had to basically wound me or incapacitate me to not be a part of my son's life.
Yeah.
There was no way. There was absolutely no way. It was not going to be at least 50-50.
Now imagine all the shit that his mom probably told him about his dad. And then imagine meeting his dad, and he looks like that, and then he's got all these issues. Now, this is one thing that really pisses me off about not being in his kid's life.
Yeah.
He has very serious mental health issues. I'm not saying that to mock him, but it's important to note that a great number of these issues are hereditary. So if that kid has problems that he doesn't understand, you just fucked him out of probably a 10-year head start on getting a hold of this shit before he has a number of issues to himself and becomes a statistic. That's lousy fucking parenting.
Yeah. This guy sounds like he's been real self-centered this whole time, though.
That's a part of borderline personality disorder.
Exactly. So you can rail on this guy for being a piece of shit by way of our standards, but is it his fault?
I don't know. But then it says that you're like, he procreated. I'm like, twice.
Yeah.
He had a kid with his wife, too. How the fuck they met, I don't know. And then they got married, and then he had the kid, and things weren't happy. And then he bailed. And then get this. He found some chick that he started talking to that he used to know back in the day. And he's like, yeah, she kind of surprised me. Like, she told me she'd always liked me. And I was like, oh, I'd always like you. And they went on dates, and apparently I think they fucked one time. Because he came into work, he's like, I tell you what, going on that date was totally worth only getting 2 hours of sleep. And then the week after that was her birthday, and he bought her a fucking TV and a Blu-ray player because hers were broken.
Oh.
And then in 2 weeks after that, I'm like, how's that going? He's like, oh, yeah, I don't talk to her anymore.
Yeah, that's
why.
She upgraded, huh?
Quote of the century. He's like, oh, her? Shit, dude, too many red flags. And I went, what the fuck is wrong with her that you of all people thought there were red flags? What the fuck is a red flag to somebody as nuts as you? I haven't even gotten to 2/3 of this fucking page of notes to give you an idea about this motherfucker.
So what did he say the red flags were?
I didn't ask. I didn't want to know. Because it's like, you know when you see a car crash and you don't want to see mangled bodies, but you can't stop looking?
Oh, yeah.
You don't want to know this guy's shit because it takes up mental bandwidth. Like, the stuff he tells you will fucking become a brainworm that will cause you to have a fucking syntax error. When he said red flags, my brain shut down. Like, what in the fuck? So, like, here's another instance. They have luncheons for people when they have their birthday. Every month they started doing this again, birthday/anniversary lunches. So when it's your 1 year, your 2 year, your 5 year anniversary, your birthday, you get a luncheon.
Okay.
He went to his, they served fucking Chinese food. And what I was told is it was like watching something on National Geographic.
Oh, really?
They just said it was like a horror
down.
show. And I'm telling you, I'm imagining something from Nat Geo. And they're like, he is just... Like, I had to listen to him slurp his food, and he's smacking his gums, and at one point he licks his palm of his hand to get the sauce off, and I'm like, didn't there have any fucking napkins?
Oh, God.
Jesus Christ.
I picture him being like a giraffe. You know, they have these lips and a tongue that can, like, reach out and grab stuff, you know, because he has no teeth. He's just got to be all, like...
Oh, he had a lower rack.
Yeah, still.
They looked whitish, but the whole top rack, I don't know what the fuck happened. But again, the slurping of the food and grossing people out. And it's just like, I can't imagine what it's like to fucking eat next to him. That's why I avoid the break room.
To not have the wherewithal or the understanding to realize how you look or how you... You know what I mean? Maybe it's the glasses. Maybe he can't see out of the periph. Maybe he can't see people making these reactions. But you have to kind of know your mannerisms, right?
Well, now there's a debate there. Is he completely unself-aware? Because I have told him he's lacking in self-awareness when he makes certain jokes around people. He got super pissed at me. I'm like, dude, you say things and you just don't know your audience. You try to make these fucking jokes and they fall so flat. For instance, he's on his phone watching a video in the break room, and it's like some kids screaming like, why does it sound like you're watching a video of little girls screaming? He's like, oh, it kind of sounds like you. Well, it doesn't, so, I mean, it's fucking stupid. And another time I said something about somebody who's like, not ugly like you. And I'm like, are you cutting me down to make you feel better about being a colossal loser?
Right.
What the fuck is your deal? So when I said you lack self-awareness, I'm like, you keep making these jokes. I keep saying they don't fucking land. And you think you're so funny. You're fucking not. It's not charming. And we're not close enough that you should feel comfortable making jokes at my expense. One time he came up and he made some joke. I don't even remember what it was. But the follow-up was, well, you know, that knife on your hip can be used for many things. My work knife. And I'm like, Jesus Christ, do I have to go call HR now? And then I went, yeah, and one of those things, if you shine it up real nice and lube it right, it's sexy. And he's like, ha, 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 ha. That's his actual fucking laugh when he laughs that hard.
Do you get to see the empty mouth?
Yes. Oh, it's like staring into like one of the rings of hell.
Yeah. And
his breath smells like he drank milk and then didn't like brush his teeth afterwards and had his mouth shut. So it's all warm, milky, like an old man's, you know?
Yeah.
It's kind of got that hint of cat urine.
Like something's turning in there.
Yeah. And just like he makes these comments.
Okay, so when you were talking about that, I had an epiphany there. I was wondering, is this just his mental capacity, and this is the way he jokes with, say, his family members, or what friends he has at the trailer park? You know what I mean? Or whatever it is.
Yeah, he didn't live in a trailer park. He actually rented a bedroom out of a friend's house. Friend, I'm an air quote friend. And once upon a time ago, he came into work with his glasses broken and said, I can't drive the machine because my glasses are broke. My roommate came after me last night when he was drunk and broke my glasses.
Sure.
And then he left crying.
Oh.
Like he's walking, it was like, like I heard him whimpering. I'm like, what the fuck? He left crying a number of times. If you upset him, he would leave. And there's a few times he's like, I'm having a mental health issue. I need to go.
See, and this is
fucking scary. As much as this guy is funny and good for laughs, he's very concerning.
Yeah. There's a comedian out there. He has basically a bit about the difference between mental retardation and mental derangement, basically, you know, and the ability and what we have for support out there.
Right.
And how there's so many people that are just borderline that are out there just functioning, right? And I think this guy sounds like he's borderline.
Here's another comment he made about just some random shit. He's like, you ever have dark thoughts? And I was just like, fuck me.
Why you?
Dude, he would confide in me.
Yeah, exactly.
He wouldn't talk to most people because they'd avoid him. But he'd come confide in me because I'd give him a little shred of fucking tolerance and try to like give him some basic advice or something. Like,
sure. You almost feel bad for the guy in a way, too. Yeah.
This is from when I was a social worker, and he reminded me of a number of my vulnerable adult clients. I'm like, I just need to placate him a little bit, and then he'll go away. He's like, you ever have dark thoughts? And I'm like, Jesus Christ. Another time he says this to me, and this I had to take this shit right to management. I'm like, Jesus Christ. He says, let me ask you something. I'm like, okay. And I'm just thinking, fuck. And he goes, do you think it's more selfish of someone to kill themselves or for the people that tell them not to kill themselves? Who's more selfish? And I'm just like, well, you asked the right person. It's actually very selfish for the other people to tell somebody whose life sucks not to kill themselves because they're only trying to get them to stay alive for their own fucking wants and wills. Yep. And they're not considering the quality of life of the person who's so tortured and miserable that they want to end their life. So yeah, if they want to end their life, I'm not going to hold it against them. And I'm like, shit, did I just give him the encouragement to go home and hang himself? Because I'm going to feel really bad for 5 seconds and then be really happy I never have to see him again. But it all makes sense.
Yeah.
But I just don't want to be the one that gives him the push over the edge.
I don't know if there is a more selfish answer in that whole scenario. It's selfish on both ends. I mean, it just depends on which direction you're looking down the binoculars.
Yeah. So that's part 2 of the Bubbles saga. Tune in next time for more stories about the worst coworker I ever had. I promise it's well worth it to revisit because you hear me explain them with so much fervor and anger in my voice that it's hopefully entertaining to you. Interact with the show on Twitter at What Do We Call It. That is at What Do We Call It. You can find us on Facebook at facebook.com/group/What Do We Call It podcast show. For the What Do We Call It podcast, I'm J-Man.
This is Steiny.
And that's the end.